Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world: movies, movie news, TV, streaming, all sorts of good things. It's Friday, and of course, the title of No Pants has been moved one day for the next couple of months because Erin Cummings is here. Erin, how you doing?
I'm good, but everyone's going to be so sad and disappointed that my little pal Joey Bishop is not joining me. This seems to be the week of injuries for the John Campea crew. Besides your leg, poor Joey Bishop pinched a nerve in her back, which it took us a couple of days and some very expensive emergency vet bills to diagnose. But I will say she is on bed rest. She is on the mend, and whatever medication she's on, I want some of that.
Making her high. Yeah, I was very disappointed to find out Joey wasn't going to be here today.
You
warned me in advance too.
I did, because I was like, you may not want me here without her, because I know that she is a big part of the reason why I keep getting invited back. But I actually had to Google what would happen to me if I took my dog's muscle relaxers, because I'm telling you, I don't know what's in this stuff, but man, she has a good time. She's just like, it takes about 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden she just looks over at me and she's like, "Mom, I'm high, man."
Well, you know, our dog Lily, she dachshunds can injure their backs very easily.
Yeah, it's a little dog thing because their spines.
Lily likes to jump, so she hurt her back one time and was just kind of miserable and just not moving very much. And Anne gave her hemp oil. Oh. And I think triple the dose she was supposed to accidentally. So Lily for hours was like, "Hey man," it was just the weirdest. It was the weirdest
cookies.
Thing.
Where
yes.
are those cookies? Do you have any cookies? Yeah.
Okay, guys, listen, we have a bunch of stuff that we need to talk about here today. We're going to be talking, obviously, a lot about the DC movies that have been dropped. We're going to be talking about this biggest deal I've ever heard of its kind for a streaming service with Rian Johnson's Knives Out and Netflix. We're going to be talking about that and a number of things more. But here's how today's show is going to go, guys. We're going to start off the first half of the show by taking some predetermined topics, and then we're going to go into the second half of the show where we take the live comments and questions that you guys send in. How do you send those in? Simply go to the tip link that's in the description of this video, and you can click on it there, or you can enter it in manually just at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's appropriate for the show. And of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. And all of us here involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Okay, guys. With that said, let's get on to a couple of off the tops here, shall we? And the first thing we're going to talk about off the top is this. There's been some interesting discussion going on around Snyder Cut the last 24 hours. Well, there's been interesting discussion going on about Snyder Cut for the last 3.5 years, but that being as it may. We talked a little while ago that it didn't quite do the numbers that some people were hoping for, but I thought they were still quite good. They didn't get as many viewers, for example, in the first little while as Wonder Woman 84 did. But Wonder Woman 84 was coming off a big, giant success of an original film, a lot of momentum going into that. So I still thought the numbers they got were pretty much a win. What's been coming out now, though, was that some numbers, some analytics were just revealed and released. And basically what these analytics reveal is that out of everybody who started watching, out of all those people who viewed it, remember, you have to watch, like Wonder Woman 84, you have to watch something on HBO Max for a minimum of 5 minutes for it to count as a view.
That's it?
That's it. I know. It should be more than that, but okay. I mean, Netflix does something similar, which is like a ridiculous, but you have to watch at least 5 minutes to count as a view. Well, according to new reports coming out, only 36% of people who actually started watching Snyder Cut actually finished watching Snyder Cut. Mm-hmm. Now, that number sounds startling, but I actually don't think it's that unreasonable of a number when you actually think about people's viewing habits on streaming services. Let's just read what our friends over at Slash Film wrote about this. They said the following: when Zack Snyder's Justice League debuted in March on HBO Max, it was a culmination of a years-long campaign by fans who clamored to see the original. Like every other streaming service out there, HBO Max doesn't release viewership numbers unless it's to tout great success of a buzzy title. But from what we can gather, Zack Snyder's Justice League was a success for the Warner Media streamer to an extent. The third-party aggregator Samba TV, which a lot of the industry uses to get their numbers and analytics from, Third-party aggregate streamer Samba TV reported that 2.2 million households watched, quote-unquote watched, Zack Snyder's Justice League in the first week of release. But how does one measure a watch? Samba TV counted households watching at least 5 minutes of the program, which is barely a fraction of the 242-minute film. So when it comes to people who sat through all 4 hours of Zack Snyder's Justice League, it comes down to a much smaller number, 800,000. That's only 36% of the U.S. households that tuned in to watch Zack Snyder's Justice League, meaning that less than half of people watched the film made it through to the end. Okay. On its surface, those numbers, I agree that on the surface, those numbers seem salacious, right? It's like, oh, look, it only be able to do that. However, I do want to point out that I personally don't think, now I'd have to look at larger scale numbers. I don't think those numbers are probably terribly far off from other streaming services and properties and movies where people, if it's on streaming, say, like, hey, it's free. Well, you know, aside from your subscription service, for me to click on play and check this thing out. And I think you would be shocked, I think, to find out what the actual completion rate is for a lot of things. I'm sure some are very high, but I think a lot of films probably have numbers close to this. Maybe not as low as 36%, but you also got to keep in mind that this is a 4-hour movie, right? So like some other movies, maybe it'd be like 90 minutes, 110 minutes, something like that. This is a 4-hour movie. So you might get some people who got 3 hours into it and said, okay, I got to tap out from now. I'll come back to this in a few weeks or something like that. So while yes, it is a little bit of a stunning number to look at, because I remember when you first told me about that number, I'm like, what? And then I thought about it for a few minutes. I'm like, oh, it's not great, but it's actually not as bad as it looks, I think, when you consider the viewing habits of people in general. Aaron, you saw this number, and it kind of jumped off the page to you. It's like, but what are your thoughts as you reflect back on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, initially I looked at that and I went, oh my gosh, that's that's crazy. But I think that it does grab headlines because this movie was so highly anticipated and so talked about for so long. But you're absolutely right. When you think about how people watch things, I mean, Jesus, Tom and I are trying to get through the Tina documentary on HBO, and it's so good. In fact, one of our dearest friends was the director of the movie. So I was like, we owe it to TJ to sit down and watch this thing in its entirety. But you're right. You get into viewing habits, and we have been, watching things while we're eating dinner. So we'll watch like half an hour of something, and then we'll be like, okay, we'll pick this up in a little bit, and then we'll go and do something else. And we get sidetracked, which is problematic for a lot of reasons. Number one, it clearly says that Tom and I just need to be able to sit down on the couch and watch something for the enjoyment of it, not while we're multitasking. And I think that's a bigger problem just in society, this need of multitasking, this need to balance all these things. And we've sometimes forgotten that it really also is important to just sit down and watch something for the enjoyment of it. And I think that that's also happening. I mean, Tom has been watching Justice League in 30-minute increments over the past week. And every time I walk in, I go, are you still watching the Snyder Cut? And he's like, it's 4 hours long. It takes me time to do it. So he's even watching it in increments. He's not even sitting down and watching it in one big chunk. But I also think that besides the viewing habits of people watching things in pieces, there's also the reality that not everyone even saw the first Justice League. And not everyone is interested in the Snyder Cut, but they've been hearing about it, and they're like, oh, I heard the Snyder Cut's a really big deal. I know there's a character named Aquaman in it. Like they're not even part of the MCU fandom at all, but they want to check it out. So they're like, all right, I'll watch this. And then they don't know what's going on. They don't know why Superman's bad. They don't know what's going on. And so they're just like, okay, well, this isn't interesting to me.
Right.
And then
Which I don't think is unusual for a lot of films.
For a lot of
people just
things.
will click on,
Absolutely.
check out, and then check out.
100%.
Yeah. So, I agree.
I don't think the only reason why it's newsworthy, I think, is number one, the fact that we've been talking about it so long. And number two, the fact that it was a headline. Whereas if we looked at the analytics for just about anything, I think that because of the way that people consume information now, consume entertainment, that's just the reality. Now, if it were in theaters and it had a pee break for yours truly, because remember, I did wet my pants. What was that movie?
Was it one of the Lord of the Rings films?
No, it was one of these MCU movies. It was way too damn long.
Endgame.
It was Endgame. Yeah. And I was like, I can't leave the theater. I can't leave the theater. And then, finally
nature happened.
Nature happened. It happened. Adult Erin Cummings wet her pants watching Endgame. There you go. So I definitely would not be able to watch this in its entirety in a theater without a pee break. That was a whole sidetrack. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I think that if this were in the theaters, I think it would do quite well, personally.
Oh, it would have tanked.
You think?
At 4 hours. A 4-hour cut
I think people would have made it an event. I think people would have made it an event.
Ooh, no. 4 hours is
people would have gone online
much.
And they would have said, okay, at hour, 1.45, there's a section of about 6 minutes where nothing really exciting happens. And Tom was also saying, he goes, I have to say that the performances are actually so much better in the Snyder Cut.
Well, the characters are allowed to be fleshed out.
Well, that's the
And
thing,
so the
is I
characters
said,
can
when you
actually play
think
them.
about, because we had this debate, and I said, listen, I get it that you like the Snyder Cut better. And of course, when you look at the side-by-sides, everybody's seeing online the side-by-sides of the edits that were made.
Right.
And I said, of course, when you're given a lower budget and less time, it's often not going to be as exciting, as good. And when it comes to an actor's performance, it's one of the issues of when film actors cross over and do television, that sometimes, not in all cases, but sometimes their performances don't translate as strongly. It's because when you do film acting, you can take those pregnant pauses and fill them with emotion. When it comes to television, there's no pauses. And if you as an actor take that pause, the editor is just going to go snip, snip, and your performance is going to seem fractured and stagnant. It's just going to be weird. So as an actor in television, you really have to train yourself not to take the pauses that you might indulge in film. Otherwise, your performance is going to look very different on the editing floor. And I think that's what happened with some of the performances, is that when we saw them breathing in the Snyder Cut because they didn't have to go through those edits for time, we went, oh, that's the way that it was intended. And it looked like a stronger performance, when in actuality, it just wasn't edited down to the words.
Right. So again, I get it. When you just see the headlines saying less than a third of the people actually finished watching it, that seems kind of stunning. But I think when you actually really think about it, I don't think it's all that far off. Other than the fact that this is a 4-hour long one, which would add to it, I don't think it's all that far off from a lot of people. I'll bet that the viewing drop off or the viewing completion rate for a Wonder Woman 84 probably wasn't too radically dissimilar from that. So yeah, it looks like a pretty salacious headline, but I actually don't think it's that big of a deal. Question is, guys, what do you think about that whole headline? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with that down, let's do one more off the top, and that is this. Some of you may not know, Netflix does a terrible job with a lot of their original movies, but they do a great job usually with their series. And one of the shows that they came out with, 2 years ago now, that I adore, toss a coin to your Witcher, O Valley of Plenty. Witcher is awesome. I love this show. I love Henry Cavill in it. I love Yennefer. I love all the characters in it. I absolutely adore Witcher. Now, of course, like a lot of movies and TV and IP, the COVID pandemic has really thrown a wrench in its production. But apparently now, according to reports and an official video put out by Netflix, season 2 is finally a wrap. They have now finished shooting the whole damn thing. They put out this little behind the scenes video. They had the showrunner where she's talking about the scope of this season, some things we can expect to see. I was just finally happy because I'll be honest with you, I've been unaware of what the status of Witcher season 2 has been. We just kept talking about for so long was they're going to try to get back to it. This got delayed. This person got sick, blah, blah, blah. To hear that it's finally shot, to hear that it's now in the can. There's a word I made up called the tangibilization. It's now tangible to me. Mm-hmm. Witcher season 2 is coming. And I'm very excited about this. Now, I don't know if I've ever asked if you and Tom watch Witcher. And obviously you were involved with a project yourself with King Richard that was, delayed by COVID for a long time. So number one, what do you think about Witcher getting back up and running? And number two, what is that like trying to be involved in a production and having it completely hijacked by the pandemic and then trying to get back into it afterwards?
Well, wait, what was your first question?
What do you think about The Witcher?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, so I'm happy when any shows come back. Because it means that people are working. It means that people are that people are employed, and I love that, especially in the industry that I work in and that I love. It's always exciting, especially when a show gets a second season, because then they get to build on the momentum. So I'm very happy for everyone that's involved with the production that they were able to do a second season. It would have been very easy for a network, as we saw during the writer's strike many years ago. It's very easy for a network to just go, well, screw it. It's too hard to bring it back. Let's just scrap the whole thing. People have forgotten. People won't care. I appreciate the fact that they have enough confidence in the fans of The Witcher that they're bringing the show back and not just scrapping it and moving on to something new. So that's wonderful news. And as far as, yes, I was supposed to shoot my part in King Richard, which is not a huge role, so I don't want to make it seem like it's me and Will Smith every day hanging out. I did have a small but a significant role in the film that's coming out hopefully later this year. I was supposed to film it in March of 2020, and then it got shelved, but then thankfully got brought back, and I was able to film in November of 2020. And yeah, I mean, it first of all, it was really concerning because a lot of people put so much time and effort and money into it. But then also, and in another situation, we've talked about Lincoln Lawyer, which I had a very significant role in, and when it was supposed to be on CBS, and it was picked up for a full season. It was going to be great. I was really excited about it, and then it got shelved. We were supposed to start back up in July. Obviously, nothing happened in July. And then eventually CBS decided to sell the rights to Netflix. And now that Netflix has it, they're doing a complete recasting from top to bottom. I don't even think the character that I was cast in is even in this iteration. And so that was a big blow to, I would be in the middle of our season right now, and I would be one of the main characters of a show on CBS that would be currently airing, and that would be really awesome for a number of reasons, financially being one of them. So it is it is a big hit when you don't have a job that you thought was a guaranteed thing, especially for something that is unpredictable. It wasn't like ratings or anything like that. It was just such an unpredictable
global pandemic out of nowhere.
Right. But I can't complain because I'm in the same boat as millions upon millions upon millions of other people. And so it just is, it's one personal way that I can identify with it. But I'm so happy that so many productions are feeling safe, so many people are getting vaccinated, and that so many protocols, like for King Richard, were put into place. It was a very bizarre experience filming during quarantine, but I'm trying to live in a place of gratitude for the gifts that I do have. And so for me, I looked at it like, wow, one day my grandkids are going to say, what was it like during the quarantine? What was it like during COVID of 2020? And I'll be like, yes, the great toilet paper famine of 2020. But I will be able to have these crazy stories of what it was like filming a studio movie, wearing the masks and then looking at Will Smith and just kind of communicating with the eyes and then being like, okay, rolling. Everybody puts their masks in their pocket. Okay, cut. Everybody takes their masks out, put the masks back on.
Well, it's funny because in the video they were just doing for Witcher, they were showing like Henry Cavill thanking everybody at the wrap and then immediately pulling out his thing and putting on the mask. And they had like 1,200 crew. Which is just insane to me.
Especially for a television show.
And trying to do it in some kind of bubble in quarantine. It's just like insane.
Where were they filming? What country?
I can't remember. I want to say New Zealand, but I'm probably wrong about that. It's probably some European country that they were shooting.
Well, it
in.
would make a lot. It would make it would make a lot more sense for New Zealand or Australia because so many productions. I mean, I know there were some pilots this year that shot their pilot in Australia because it made a lot more sense financially to fly the cast and the essential crew to Australia to shoot the pilot because to quarantine everyone for 2 weeks, shoot the pilot without having to deal with the COVID restrictions and all that kind of stuff. Because the cost of being able, I mean, I was offered a film pre-COVID that was going to pay me a substantial amount of money. But we hadn't done like the written offer. It was just a verbal offer.
Right.
And then COVID happened. And by the time they were going to film and they were ready to make me the actual offer, the offer was significantly less. And the reality is, it was not a film that I was in love with doing. It was a film that I was going to be happy to do because I was going to be paid a certain amount of money for it. But then because of the COVID issues, that changed all the budget and the money was...
So they had to readjust everything.
They had to readjust everything. And I was like, sorry.
Well, guys, at least it looks like Witcher Season 2 was finally able to find a way to navigate through all that. I can't imagine what it was like trying to shoot and bring that thing to completion under the circumstances last year. But what do you guys think? Are you guys even a fan of The Witcher? I personally very much am. Maybe you are too. Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's now move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them. Whenever you come across a big topic, issue, or story that you think we should feature as a main topic here on the show, simply go anytime, 24/7, over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Sean Connor Martin, who writes, Hey, John. Variety just put out an article stating that Netflix has bought the rights to Knives Out 2 and 3 for $450 million. That is not a typo, ladies and gentlemen. That is the actual number for $450 million. Not much is yet known about their plots, but Johnson has said, much like the Detective Pierrot, who I'm sure I always mispronounce his name, series on which Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile are based on, they will follow Craig's Detective Blanc as he solves new cases. As a fan of Knives Out, what do you think of all this, and are there any actors you would love to see come together in these sequels? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, listen, Knives Out was one of my favorite movie watching experiences the last couple of years. Like when I heard, I don't think of Rian Johnson when I think of doing Agatha Christie kind of like murder mysteries. I just don't. But when I heard that he's like always been in love with those mysteries and he really wanted to do an ode to Agatha Christie kind of movie, and I heard Daniel Craig was playing Blanc, then you saw this, including the late great good Canadian kid Christopher Plummer, this insane cast from top to bottom, ridiculous talent. And then you think, okay, are they going to be able to pull this off and execute it? And they did. Rian Johnson got an Academy Award nomination for the screenplay. Tremendous success, and it did very well. Well, we knew a while ago that Rian Johnson said that they were going to be doing more, and now we have more details. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety who write, Netflix is plunking down an astonishing $450 million for the rights to Knives Out 2 and Knives Out 3. The next two follow-ups to the 2019 murder mystery, sources tell Variety. The films will reunite director Rian Johnson and star Daniel Craig, who teamed up so memorably on their first detective story. The first Knives Out was produced by Media Rights Capital. It was then distributed by Lionsgate, going on to earn $311.4 million on just a $40 million budget. Not a bad return on investment. Johnson was nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. All right, couple things to put this in perspective. That $450 million for the rights to those movies, that is not production money. That's not Netflix paying to make the movies. That is
Oh my
Netflix
God.
simply acquiring the rights to the movies, and they paid $400. Because I was talking to a friend of mine that you might think at first, oh yeah, the $450 million, so they'll use about $230 million to make each film. No. Netflix, no, they're just paying $450 million to have the rights to put their completed Knives Out 2 and 3 on Netflix. That's how significant of a thing this is. So if you are the production, if you're Rian Johnson and you're the production company behind this, you're like, oh my God, we just hit our box office results, after theater cuts and everything, without having to market this movie. Before we've even started shooting this movie, we've made incredible profit on this movie. It is an insane number. It is a glorious number, and I'm super happy for all of them involved in it. It is also a sign of the times, in the sense that the streaming wars are heating up. And we have talked before that the key to the streaming wars is going to ultimately be exclusive premium content. That's going to be the key to everything. It's all going to be about exclusive premium content when it's all said and done. And Netflix, understanding now that Disney Plus, despite their 10-year head start, Disney Plus is nipping at their heels already. HBO Max, once they really get their marketing game together, they produced, I still believe, the finest quality content. HBO, when you look at the history of HBO, they just create the finest quality content. So they're going to be catching up to them. Apple TV is not playing around. They dropped 200. It was huge news when they dropped 200 million on the Marty Scorsese movie, which again, my accountant's wife got a lead role in it. So congratulations, Josh, and to your wife. Like all that kind of stuff. The game is getting very serious. I'm going to tell you what, Aaron, these numbers for a movie, and remember, Knives Out is not $1 billion franchise.
Right. That's what's so shocking about it.
It's an Oscar caliber franchise, but not $1 billion franchise.
But it's not even a franchise yet.
Yes,
it is a movie. It is a one-off movie. And as we've seen many, many times, there have been incredible films that people have high hopes to be a franchise. And then number 2 comes out and people go, oh, well, okay, maybe not.
Or number 1 comes out and they go, oh, well, maybe not.
Right. Yeah. So this could be a $450 million fart. This could be a really bad move. Yeah. I hope it's not. Now, here's my question for you, though, John. Where does that $450 million go? Like, who did Netflix acquire the rights from? Is it from the production company that did the first one? Is it Rian Johnson for writing it? Like, who gets that money?
I believe Ryan, I could be mistaken about this. I believe, because I was looking at this a little bit earlier. Ryan, I believe, is part of that ownership. He has a stake. He has major points in the franchise itself. So it's going to be the company that is behind the movies, the production company, as it were. Because, you usually, traditionally what you do is you make the movie, there's a production company and there's a distributor.
Right.
And that's usually the relationship. So in this case now, the production, the people responsible for that are like, we will give the rights to you. Yep. And that's, so it is crazy, insane numbers. And listen, this is Netflix going to make their money back? No, they're not. But it's kind of like PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 gets sold at a loss. When PlayStation sells PlayStation 5s, when you're not buying it secondhand for an enormously jacked up prices. But Sony sells PlayStation 5s at a loss. It actually costs them more to make those things and ship them than it does for what you're paying for it. But that's okay to them because they're going to make their money when you buy stuff on PS5. You got your PS5 at home. Now you buy their exclusive content, you buy their services, you buy their games, you're wrapped up in the ecosphere. So they're cool with that. I think Netflix is kind of taking that approach that it's, look, we're not going to get a direct dollar for dollar return on investment on this, obviously. But there's a prestige factor. There's an attention factor. Netflix loves getting Academy attention. They love, I've heard their CEO talk about this. They love that fact. They tout that fact. And they're going to hope that then becomes something that's attractive for other filmmakers to say, we will work exclusively with Netflix. You're going to give us these toys. So it's a huge gamble. It's a huge amount of money. But I mean, I can't help but be thrilled for content creators and for these guys making this movie, because it couldn't have happened to a better kind of quality franchise. And I have no reason to doubt they're going to do great moving forward. Anyway, you hear about this. I mean, you have starred in and appeared in Netflix series and things like that. When you hear about this level of money starting to be really shelled out, and that we've seen streaming services increasing their spends, but this is a remarkable number. What's your impression when you hear about Netflix putting up $450 million for parts 2 and 3 of a modestly successful film?
Well, first of all, I saw Knives Out at my favorite movie theater, the Alamo Drafthouse. This is not an ad; it's just me saying I love the Alamo Drafthouse, and I loved the film. I thought it was a great movie to see in the theaters. One of my favorite films of all time is Clue, and so this really gave me a lot of Clue memories. I've made a list for myself of my dream cast in the upcoming Knives Out franchise. So anybody who wants to listen to this, these are my people that I would like to be included in 2 and or 3. Adam Driver, which is an obvious choice because it would combine, with Rian Johnson again, and everybody out there online has been saying it. So I think that Adam Driver is kind of a given. Octavia Spencer, who I just think
she'd be great as something like that.
She'd be so good because she just is. She has that quality to her where you never know if she's on the side of the good guy or the side of the bad guy, but she has this likable charisma that no matter what her angle is, you're really going to be rooting for her. Lucy Liu, who, by the way, may seem like a strange choice, but for all of my Gen Xers out there, if you remember her in Ally McBeal, she was so delicious in her delivery of that, just that punctuated kind of dialogue that Rian Johnson, it was so beautifully done in Knives Out, and she's great at that. Ian McKellen, who I think would be phenomenal. John Goodman, Donald Glover, as well as Danny Glover. Henry Golding, who I'm obsessed with. Javier Bardem, who would be a great sort of misleading bad guy because he always seems like he's the bad guy, but then he probably wouldn't be the bad guy. Jane Fonda, John Hamm, and Don Cheadle. That's my dream list.
That's a great sounding list, actually.
So yeah,
it's not just good names. Like, those sound like names that would fit in really well into this Knives Out
right. I was
world.
trying to think of who are people like Don Cheadle. Is wonderful at drama, but then if you think back to his character work in the Ocean's 11 franchise, he's really good at taking on these sort of quirky kind of characters as well. John Hamm, anyone who's ever watched any episodes that he's been in of SNL, SNL or 30 Rock, he's really good at that deadpan, dry humor. So yeah, that's my wish list. And Donald Glover, in my mind, can do no wrong. So
there you have it, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this deal? It is an absolutely fanatical number. Will this kind of number now cause a bit of an arms race, if you will, amongst the streamers? Are they going to have to start putting up bigger numbers if they want to attract the bigger filmmaking talent? What do you guys think about this? Jump on down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Eric Bale, who writes, "Greetings, John and Aaron. I got to go to my local AMC yesterday to see Godzilla vs. Kong and had such a great time. The story was meh." That's fair. That's fair. The story was meh, but it was exactly what I needed as my first time back in the theaters in over a year. Wondering if you saw that it broke the box office record for the pandemic era with $9.8 million opening day, beating out Wonder Woman 84. You speculated it could make 30 to 40 million by the end of its opening weekend. Do you think that's easy now? Could it make more? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, I did go to see Godzilla vs. Kong in the theaters. What a glorious experience it was. I had so much fun. You guys probably saw that I put up my quick out of theater review for that. Basic in a nutshell, the human stuff is the weakest, especially the Team Godzilla human stuff. The Team Kong human stuff was more relevant to the movie, but still, what we really wanted to see was Godzilla and Kong. Godzilla fighting Kong, Godzilla fighting other things, Kong fighting other things, all this kind of stuff. Who knew that we want, well, no, I'm not going to give away a spoiler. Anyway.
You better not.
No spoilers for me. No spoilers for me. But I just had a lot of fun, man. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. Well, apparently a lot of people wanted to go see this thing as, yes, the numbers have come in. It's opening day. Godzilla versus Kong made 9.6. I think you might have said 9.8 in the email, but $9.6 million on its opening day, which beats the previous opening day record during the pandemic era of Wonder Woman 84, which made about 7-something million on its opening day. Now, we have been speculating here that we think by the end of its first weekend, Godzilla could make $30 to $40 million in that thing, which would, again, be an easy record for the pandemic era and all that kind of stuff. But that $30 to $40 million becomes even more impressive, like really impressive, when you consider the following. That those numbers during this era right now, let's look back and compare. Now, we talked a little bit about this before, but let's look back and compare this for a second. Let's jump into the Campea classroom for a second. So if Godzilla versus Kong can manage 30 to 40 million, and with a 9.8 opening day on a Wednesday, it seems pretty reasonable. It might be able to hit those numbers, which would be insane if it does, 30 to 40 million. But keep this in mind. Godzilla King of the Monsters, the last monster movie, made $47 million opening weekend. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, $47 million was not in a pandemic. So Godzilla King of the Monsters made in the 40s without a pandemic. Also, Godzilla King of the Monsters did it without limited theaters. And by limited theaters, I mean limited capacity theaters. Mm-hmm. So Godzilla versus Kong has a pandemic going on. Still a lot of people nervous about going to the theaters. They have limited capacity and all that kind of stuff. And here's the third one. Free viewings on HBO Max. So Godzilla King of the Monsters, King of the Monsters, the last movie, didn't give people the option to just stay at home and watch it at home. It didn't have a pandemic to deal with. It didn't have limited theater capacity to deal with. Godzilla versus Kong does have all those challenges. A lot of people who are interested in watching are just sitting at home to watch it. Some people are just too nervous to go out in theaters because of the pandemic. And some people, I know in LA at least, I don't know about other places around the country, but in LA, a lot of people were having trouble finding tickets to see Godzilla versus Kong because all the theaters were selling out because of limited capacity and what have you. When you consider that Godzilla versus Kong could end up in the same neighborhood of a box office result as the last Godzilla movie, with all of these challenges, it just puts into context how impressive of a number this really would be. I also think it ends the discussion, is because let's face it, I have a lot of fun with Godzilla King of the Monsters, all right? I do. The Godfather, it is not, okay? The story is
meh.
Yeah, the story is meh. At best, the story is meh. Half of the characters served real no practical function. I adore Millie Bobby Brown. Her character did not need to be in this movie whatsoever. That's not a critique on her. It's just that the character didn't need to be there whatsoever. But all that kind of stuff. And yet people are flocking out to go see this thing. I think it bodes very well, considering this wasn't a new Justice League. This wasn't a new Avengers movie. This wasn't, the next Captain America film. This wasn't the next James Bond. It was Godzilla versus Kong. I think this bodes very well. I think these are terrific numbers. And when you put it in context, the last film, I think it's really impressive. Aaron, you hear about this thing making about $10 million just on its first Wednesday, which is comparable to what these monsters movies were doing pre-pandemic. How significant is this, or am I overplaying it a little bit? How do you see it?
Well, not to play devil's advocate, and thank you for the Campea classroom. Aaron Cummings' class is now in session. Let's talk about a few things. Number one, yes, we are in a pandemic. But number two, a significant number of people have at least received their first vaccination shot.
Yes.
So there is a lot more optimism, a lot more confidence. People are feeling a lot better about going out into public spaces. And part of that is, I will give credit where credit is due to the incredible lengths that the theaters have gone to ensure the safety of their patrons.
Right.
As you said, limited capacity. So that's number one, is that yes, we are technically still in a pandemic. Wear your masks, get vaccinated, social distance, do all those things that you should be doing. But because of vaccination rates and the wonderful lengths that the theaters are going to, people are feeling more confident about going out in public. That's number one. Number two, while there is limited capacity, there's also limited competition. I don't know what else was going on when Godzilla King of the Monsters came out, but we probably had a lot of things to choose from, you know? So when you go to In-N-Out Burger, you're probably going to there's a really good chance you're going to get a double-double, because there's not a lot of other options on the menu unless you know about the secret menu. Whereas when you go to the Cheesecake Factory, you might not get a hamburger because there's 5,000 things on that menu that is the size of a phone book. So we have limited competition right now. There's really only one movie to see in theaters. So that's another aspect of it. And then also, I don't necessarily think that the United States per se, and I could be wrong on this, I have been wrong once or twice in my life before. I don't think that the United States is as ravenous for Godzilla as we are for Kong. We love King Kong. I mean, King Kong, Fay Ray, like he is a beloved figure. And Godzilla is a badass. This is no disrespect to Godzilla, but I think that the idea of a Godzilla movie on its own is never going to do as well as a Godzilla with our beloved King Kong. You know, in this not totally unlike an Alien versus Predator, you know, but in a different way. Yeah, I got to work that out in my head. But I do think that if this were just a Godzilla movie, I don't know if it would be doing as well. The addition of King Kong and having those two powerhouses going at it together makes a big difference. And my third piece of information to add to this is the fact that this isn't a movie that people who love action films want to see in theaters. If this were The Godfather, or if this were, say, The Pianist, people might want to sit at home where they're not going to be distracted by people talking or whatever. This is a movie, like, I would never in a million years want to see this movie for the first time in my living room.
Right.
Why? Because Tom would be like, oh my God, you know, do that. We're going to watch it in 30-minute segments, as we've been talking about earlier. This is a movie that I want to go into the theater. I want to be scared out of my mind. I want to scream. I want to yelp. I want other people to scream. I want people cheering. I want this theater to be rocking and rolling with the 5 people sporadically spread out. But I mean, remember when we went and saw you rented the theater, the AMC
Indiana
theater.
Jones and the
We went and
Last
saw Indiana,
Crusade.
and the trailer for this came out. I was freaking out. I was screaming. I was jumping up and down in my seat because it's so exciting. This is a movie that people want to see in the theaters, and I think this is a great movie to get people back into theaters.
Yes.
So I do think, and because also, and I'm going to call you out on this, you can't put an asterisk on the Oscars if you're not going to put an asterisk on the box office.
Oh, you absolutely have to put asterisks on the box office. 1,000% you have to.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
On every level, from Tenet to Wonder Woman to Godzilla, you have to have thousands of asterisks.
Right, but
on
so
them.
here's my question. Right now, if I wanted to go to the movies and I wanted to see what movies there were to choose from, besides Godzilla versus Kong, what are my options right now, this weekend?
You know what? Let's look. Let's open up AMC, because I mean, I know AMC was packed. Hold a second. Let's go over here. So AMC theaters, here's what's playing in there right now. Because you're right, the competition is, why is AMC theaters not opening back up? Here we go. So playing now at AMC theaters, you have Raya and the Last Dragon. You have The Croods, New Age. You have the Tom and Jerry movie. You have the new film, The Courier. You have Chaos Walking. That's the Ridley. I keep wanting to say Ridley Scott when I'm trying to say Daisy Ridley.
Oh.
The Daisy Ridley Tom Holland film. That you have Godzilla versus Kong. You have Nobody, which is awesome, by the way.
Oh, I want to see that.
You and Tom got to go see Nobody.
I think we might see that this weekend.
I think it's so fun.
In fact, we might do a double feature and see Nobody and Godzilla versus Kong with a bathroom break in between, of course.
So you got Minari, which is out there too. The new Liam Neeson one, The Marksman. So I mean, this is not. I mean, the theaters aren't empty, but this is not your typical competition for a weekend like that. So like there are so many asterisks, from limited competition to the fact that it is playing on HBO Max, to the fact that despite the fact that we're coming out of it and we're seeing positive signs, theaters are reopening, all that kind of stuff, there's still limited capacity. There's still people afraid to go to the movies.
Well, and also when Wonder Woman 84 came out, were the New York and LA markets even open at that point?
No, they were not.
Well, then there you go. That's another thing. I mean, the two biggest markets in the country, that's a big deal as well.
So there are, like I said, there are a lot of asterisks on both ways. The ultimate thing, though, here to me is this. When the New York theaters open back up, when the LA theaters open back up, as we saw, at least in California, there are other states struggling a little bit more, but in California, we saw the new cases numbers drop. Now something like this, for a not super successful franchise, because Godzilla, hey, I like Skull Island. But I mean, the reality is this monster franchise has not been the biggest box office blockbuster films out there. It's just yet another positive sign to me of things going in the right direction. And so seeing these types of numbers, I think is exceptional. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this, about Godzilla versus Kong? If it can actually come in close to another movie that had none of the challenges that these ones are, given where we're at in time. What do you think about these numbers? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by John Grayson, who writes, I just heard that Ava DuVernay's New God film has been shelved, along with Aquaman spinoff The Trench. I'm a little let down by this, as I was excited for both films, but The Hollywood Reporter also reports that the long-awaited Green Lantern Corps film is expected during WB's 2022 and 2023 release slate. I'd love to know your thoughts. Thanks. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, there are 2 films that DC had on their slate that I always openly wondered, I don't know that this is even going to get made. And I said that about Ava DuVernay's New Gods from the beginning. Now, you got to be excited that you had a filmmaker of the caliber of Ava DuVernay doing a DC film, but I always felt like New Gods, I just don't see it happening. And then when they announced The Trench, I mean, it's like, okay, cool, but do we really need a full movie about those monsters we saw in a 10-minute scene in the first Aquaman? Do we need a whole movie about that? Is that what really people are excited about? And obviously some people were, but I don't know that a large chunk of the audience was going to be or were. And anyways, it turns out it's now official. They have dropped those films. This comes to us from Warner Brothers, who put out an official statement that said the following. As a part of our DC slate, some legacy development titles, including New Gods and The Trench, will not be moving forward. We thank our partners Ava DuVernay, Tom King, James Wan, and Peter Safran for their time and collaboration during this process and look forward to our continued partnership with them on other DC stories. I think that's significant. We'll talk about that in a second. The projects will remain in their skillful hands if they were to move forward in the future. So, okay, couple of really interesting things there in this statement. Number one, let's talk about that last thing, that this is not DC saying, oh, we want to take them off of The Trench. This is not saying we want to take Ava DuVernay off New Gods. They're saying, look, if we ever do come back around to these things, James will be back, Ava will be back. We'll just do it with them if we ever decide to do this again in the future. So that's interesting. The other interesting part about this that I want to draw a little bit of attention to on this point is they say that we look forward to working with them on other DC stories. Now, to me, this sounds good because I've always liked, for both the talent they said they had attached to The Trench and obviously the talent they've had attached to New Gods. We're just talking about Ava DuVernay. I thought, hey, listen, it's always great to see great storytellers telling these stories we want to see. But I'm not going to lie to you. I am far more interested in seeing Ava DuVernay take on something else in the DC universe than I was with New Gods. I just don't think New Gods is something in property, and me and Robert debated this, but I don't think New Gods is a property that would connect with a lot of the average movie-going audience. I just don't think it would. But then again, maybe they could pull it out. And having Ava DuVernay attached is great, but I think this is good news. I think it allows them to focus more on what they know is working. They can reassess their resources. So I'm not terribly broken up about this. I was never super excited to see New Gods. I was never super excited to see The Trench. There are other DC properties I am super excited about. So, and the fact that they're not just saying we're out of the Ava DuVernay business is good.
Well,
so
no,
we'll see where they go.
They're very much in the Ava DuVernay business because she is doing Naomi for CW.
Yes.
In which I actually I had to sign an NDA, so I'm going to speak slowly to make sure that I do not say anything that I might be. I was Ava DuVernay's casting director, Aisha Cooley, who cast me in Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins, many, many years ago, has been wonderful to me in that she's given me the opportunity to work with Ava on Wrinkle in Time, doing like off-camera things, and that's when I got to meet the incredible Ava DuVernay, and also helping with auditions, like being a reader and things like that. And there was a role that had not yet been cast in Naomi that I was not right for. But that Aisha asked me if I could jump on the Zoom read they were having the table read. And so they sent me the script of Naomi to read. And I'm very excited about it. It's fantastic. And I'm really excited to see the finished product. They have a great cast that they've assembled. And so when Naomi comes out on the CW, even though I am not the target demographic for a CW, I admit I still enjoy their shows. And I'm excited to see that Ava DuVernay is still not only in the DC world, but that she has a DC property coming out, and so that it's not necessarily a commentary on the directors per se, as much as it is the actual products themselves.
Right. Because obviously they love working with James Wan. Obviously.
Of course.
They want to stay in the Ava DuVernay business. Especially,
yes.
I keep forgetting, what was the name of the Netflix series? The one that just won a whole bunch of awards. The series she did, and I'm freezing on it now, the actual name of it. So, you know what? Sorry. Now I got to go look it up. Sorry. I'm going to waste time here.
Queen of the South? That's not Netflix, no.
Which one did you say?
Queen of the South?
No. And I'm forgetting the name of it. When They See Us. Thank you guys in the live chat. Thank you. When They See Us. I was going to say this.
Sorry, that was like 2 years ago. So but yeah, it was incredible.
Yes. So they want to be in, this is the thing. Walter Hamada wants to be in business with this caliber of storytellers. So but I just think you still have to have the right stories to tell.
Absolutely.
And I was just never really completely on board. Like, don't get me wrong. If New Gods came out tomorrow in the theaters, I'd be there day one for sure. But I've never really been excited about these titles.
It also may be about the timing of it. There might be some development that's required in the DC universe to flesh out, the interest of New Gods before the investment of a full film is made. And I like the fact that they said if we choose to revisit it, Ava and James will be the first people with right of refusal on these properties. It's just now is not the right time for the properties.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm not going to lie, I'm not terribly disappointed about this news. There's other projects they have on the go that I am very excited about. I think they need to, just focus their attention on the projects that they think can really work. And if these weren't them, then move on. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this move by DC to cut out The Trench and New Gods? Do you think there's a possibility they could come back and revisit them at some time in the future? How do you feel about it overall? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, let's now move on and start taking your live comments and questions, shall we? How do you get a live comment or question on the show? Well, it's really rather simple. See, all you have to do is click on down in the description of this video, and you're going to see a tip link there. Just click on that, or you could enter it in manually at streammoms.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show, once again, if it's appropriate for the show. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And all of us here involved at the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for your support. Okay. With that said, let's move on over and start taking your live comments and questions. And we're going to get things started here with, let me see if I can get this right. There we go. We're going to get things started here with Willow, who writes, I seriously cannot stop laughing when you describe the Umbrella script. I'm going out on a limb and guessing that the movie never got made, which is too bad because I really want to watch it now. # release the Umbrella cut. So you weren't here for this. You don't know what we're talking about. So somebody asked me the other day on the show, what is the dumbest pitch for a movie I ever saw? So back when I used to work with satellite animation, I worked with the CGI visual effects company for a while. We had these producers, they were new in the business, but we had these producers who bought the rights to this script, and they came to us with the script, and I was the client services director, so I was first point of contact. They came to us with this script, and they said, we want to get an estimate on just a ballpark on what do you think the visual effects would cost us if we turned this into a movie? And it was called Umbrellas.
Not to be confused with the Umbrella Academy.
Not to be confused with the Umbrella Academy. Very, very different. Wouldn't that be funny if this script morphed into the Umbrella? No, obviously that was a graphic novel. But, so they give me the script, and I read the script, and I kid you not, and it's not meant tongue-in-cheek. It's not meant to be funny. It's this idea that throughout the history, the last number of centuries, if not thousands of years, the most powerful men, when you look at old drawings of them, they always had an umbrella with them. And it turns out the world is really being run by these sentient living umbrellas who get themselves into the possession of powerful men and manipulate those men into doing their bidding. There's even like a scene in the script where they flap a guy to death. Not fap a guy to death. That's a very different thing. Flap a guy to death. And they throw him out the window. It was some of the dumbest shit I've ever read in my life. So anyway, and it was probably going to cost you very small, but we were a very small company. I said, you're probably looking at 1.5 million if you want to do it on this level. If you want to do really good, you're probably looking at 15 to 20 million, but 1.5. They were hoping to hear 50,000.
What?
I told you, they were completely inexperienced. Like, they were inexperienced producers. They just thought, oh my God.
Like a simple Google search will tell you that you're not going to be able to do that.
Oh yeah. They
you better call in some friendly favors if you want something like that done.
You could totally tell they were like, my nephew, Billy, made my website for $50. So you can do this for 50,000, right? So anyway, it was,
wow.
Yeah. So that was yeah.
And here's the thing, you know what? I want to snub my nose at the idea of these sentient umbrellas, but I have no doubt that if we actually broke down, the absurdity of some of the most popular, a lizard fights a monkey. How exciting could that be?
Legos.
Huh?
Legos. A Lego movie about plastic building blocks.
Exactly. Like if we break it down to its very, to its core, almost any movie is going to borderline on the absurd. But that being said, as I always go back to, it's about the story. And if the story around these sentient umbrellas is somehow made into, could it be done? Of course it could be done. But I am always amazed at the garbage that actually gets made. Tom and I went to a film festival pre-COVID, and we went with some other friends. And I remember sitting there watching some of the films, and a friend of mine looked over at me and she goes, we really got to make a movie. She goes, if this garbage can get accepted into a film festival, I was like, yeah, pretty much. So I'm not saying that anybody could make a movie, but if you are interested in making a movie, you should make that movie. Why? Because you never know. You never know.
Look what happened to the Blair Witch Project.
Exactly.
Right? Eduardo, him and his buddy just made this thing, and boom, all of a sudden they were world famous. All right, let's move on here. Next up, who do we got? We got Joshua, who writes, longtime fan since one of your videos showed up on my Facebook feed from the AMC days back in 2012 or 2013. Thank you, Joshua. Love all that you do. Wish I could give more. Do you think that we will see a 10-year-old Luke in Obi-Wan? Of course, we've got the Obi-Wan series coming. They just announced, start of production and all the kind of stuff. They announced the full cast list, very impressive cast list, all that kind of stuff. Do I think we're going to see a young Luke? Not only do I think we're going to see a young Luke, I believe they may have already confirmed it. because we are getting Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru back. So Joel Edgerton's going to be there. So they are, of course, the caretakers of Luke Skywalker at that point. So I think it is all but confirmed. The only thing they haven't announced yet is who's the young actor they've cast to play young Luke. And listen, probably not going to be a main character, I don't think. I suspect that the young Luke isn't going to be a main character, but I do think we're going to see him. I think it's almost a guarantee. So yes, I think we are going to see that young Luke Skywalker, Joshua. All right, next up, Harold Zidler writes, John, I'm sending this to be the second bad trip recommendation. Like you, I thought the trailers were bad, but it turns out that because 95% of the movie is too graphic for a trailer, I haven't laughed that hard in years, and Tiffany Haddish is amazing. Listen, I've been in love with Tiffany Haddish ever since Girls Trip. That movie caught me so off guard and so by surprise. Loved her, and I love her stand-up comedy. Do have to say, though, I haven't loved her in anything else other than Girls Trip. But she hasn't been in any good movies since Girls Trip, but I love her stand-up comedy.
I think she's fantastic.
She's so good.
And really smart. Like, I've been listening to some of her rooms on Clubhouse, and like really very intelligent. If you saw like her comedic mind, the way that she puts pieces together is something that I wasn't expecting, because especially like she comes out and she pretends like she's just there for fun, and you're like, yeah, this girl's really fun. You don't expect her sometimes to come out with the gems that she comes out with. But even like, I think the first time that I saw her was when she was on SNL, and it was right when like all these comedians were getting taken down by being absolutely stupid with their nudity, and she just said it so perfect. She's like, if she has her clothes on, you don't need to be naked. When are men going to learn? And obviously Tiffany Haddish does it much better than I do and much more funny, but so I have been repeating that on auto loop of like, anytime that we get caught up in these conversations, I'm like, it's very easy, guys. You don't need to take your dick out if she's wearing clothes. Like, I'm going to tell you, that's what Tiffany Haddish said. She was right. But she's wonderful. She's funny. I loved, she hosted the Kennedy Center Honors, I believe for Dave Chappelle. Was the Kennedy Center Honors, or it was,
might be.
It was one of those like big prestigious awards, and she came and she was wonderful. Yeah, I think she's great. So I'm excited for all of her success.
Do you ever hear her tell the story about living in the car? She was living in a car doing comedy in LA. This is really neat. So she was telling stories like most of the comedians all know each other. Mm-hmm. And she was like literally at one point living in her car, then driving to the Comedy Store and like doing stuff there. And she knew Kevin Hart because they knew each other. And Kevin Hart was just like, when he found out she was like living in a car, he like got her a place. Like, this is before any of us knew the name Tiffany Haddish. Mm-hmm. He said, look, here's this place, my buddies, you can go, he's out of the country for a while, you can go stay there. And he helped her get, I love hearing stories like that. I like hearing those stories like that.
Can I tell you, then I'm going to tell you this story. Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos.
And Detroit.
And Detroit 187. So when we were in Detroit filming Detroit 187, he knew that I had started Mittens for Detroit, the nonprofit that was providing mittens and gloves to people, homeless people and children in shelters and schools. And he was telling me, he called me one day and he said, there's this guy, he needs to go to the doctor. Do you mind? I can't give him a ride because I'm, working today. Can you give him a ride? And I was like, yeah, what's the story? Apparently he was this homeless person that Michael would see with his sons, and they would just like talk, and he was friendly with him. And then one day, as it was getting colder, he saw the gentleman wrapping his arms and his legs with saran wrap, and he said, what are you doing? And he said, oh, it's to protect me from the cold. So Michael Imperioli went and got him an apartment and would check in on him so that he would be safe through the winter. And he would never tell anyone that story. But if there's any doubt about the humanity of Michael Imperioli, he's really quite an incredible human.
That is an awesome story to hear. I've never heard that story. Because
it's not something that he would ever talk about. He just did it. And in fact, the only reason I even knew about it was because he knew that I was, running this nonprofit and that I cared about people in the cold in Detroit. And he knew that I would be someone that he could count on if, to help this guy out in some way. And so, but like that was all him, that's just who he is.
It's nice hearing stories like that in an era when all we hear about is the bad behavior of a lot of these people.
Exactly.
All right, next up, let's keep going here. Ralph Boner writes, "Hey, John. So Bucky can beat up Cap. No, he can't. We went through that before. Cap was never actually ever trying to hurt Bucky. So no, Bucky can't beat up Cap. Iron Man, nope. Remember, he was trying to run away from Iron Man. Bucky cannot beat up Iron Man. Black Panther, nope. Remember, every time they fought, he was getting the short end of the stick. Bucky cannot take Black Panther. And Thanos' army, yeah, but that was cannon fodder. But can't handle some serumed up kids on a truck. You're right. He couldn't take on a larger number of people when he was outmanned, people who have the super soldier serum. Yes, you're right. He couldn't take them out. Anyway, they retconned his power level in the show. He's nerfed now. He's the freaking Winter Soldier. They did. No, I disagree with that. They have not diminished his power level. He had a run from Iron Man. He was losing to Black Panther. He was only fighting Cap when Cap just refused to hurt him in the first place. And now he's not just a bunch of kids. These are kids, a larger number of them with the super soldier serum. That's not a small deal. I remember Sam was struggling with them too. Do not underestimate how significant the fact that they have the super soldier serum is in this equation. Okay, that's not a small, little, tiny, discardable detail. That is majorly significant. So no, I personally don't think they've depowered him in this one at all. Especially if you saw the latest episode, they haven't depowered him. He can still rip through a lot of people. Anyway, next up, Lino's Lost Incarnation writes, "Hey friends, when the Thundercats guy says so passionately that he will do something unseen before CGI/animated, let me down because I want live action. But then I remember Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Animation could still impress. Come on, wow me, hugs." I think one of the big things about that, of course, the Godzilla vs. Kong director, Wingard, just announced that he's also going to do a Thundercats movie.
Woo!
And I am like you, that this disappointed me a little bit because I want a live action one. I want a live action Thundercats movie. Now, you bring up Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Yes, but the thing about Thundercats is we've had several animated incarnations of Thundercats. We've had several of them. Spider-Man, it's not that animated stuff can't be great. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was my third favorite movie the year it came out. It's magnificent. I thought it should have been nominated for Best Picture. I'm not even kidding. I thought that movie should have been nominated for Best Picture. I think it's that good. But like Thundercats, we've had generations and like 3 or 4 different iterations of animated stuff. It's time for a live action thing. Now, I trust it's still going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be great. But I'm not going to lie. I wanted something live action.
I agree with you. I want it to be live action. I want them to get the exact same CGI crew that did Cats the musical. And I want them to release the butthole cut.
Release the butthole cut. Absolutely has to be there. All right.
That's for you, Chris Carr.
That's for
I miss
Chris.
you.
Next up, we've got Chase H. writes, "Hey, John, I just got my ticket for Godzilla vs. Kong. It will be my first time back in theaters in over a year, and my city is allowing fans at hockey and baseball games starting in April. Thankfully, life is readjusting and exciting for next summer." That is awesome, Chase. I know my excitement about going back to the theaters. By the way, I can't remember if you were here. Did you hear what they were doing in Miami for this? Were you here when we were talking about this? So they announced Miami was going to start letting in X number of people into like Miami Heat basketball games, right? And when I first heard about this, I thought, well, that's a lame gimmick. That's not real. What they were doing was they created, number one, if you can show your vaccination, you're good. Number two, and if you didn't, you had to go and get a quick COVID test and they can give you results in 15 minutes. Good. But the other thing they were employing was COVID sniffing dogs. And that's exactly what I said. And this isn't on this was like on Variety. So COVID sniffing dogs. And then they talked to these university people. Yeah, they have a 94% accuracy rate of being able to detect.
So if I'm carrying the COVID virus and a COVID sniffing dog comes in here, that dog has a 94% possibility or efficacy rate of being able to tell whether or not I have COVID.
Yes.
That is crazy.
Isn't that insane?
What kind of dogs are these?
I don't know, but Rob was on the show with me as we were going over this article, and we're like, oh my God. It's like, that's crazy.
Must be German Shepherds.
It has to be some kind of breed like that. And if you can, I mean, every movie, AMC should invest millions of dollars in just having 3 COVID sniffing dogs at the front door as you come in to the thing. It would make everything perfect.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
Isn't it amazing?
I don't even know what to think about that. Yeah.
Highlighting again, the cats are useless.
Hey.
Sorry, did I say that out loud? Filter, mind to mouth. Got to remember.
Cats provide endless hours of entertainment on the internet.
All right, let's move on. They do. The internet is half built on cat videos.
True.
All right, next up, Ryan Lohner writes, one of two. Some darkly funny comic book history. Lamar Hoskins started out using, but I know about this. Yeah, this is true. Lamar Hoskins started out using Bucky as his superhero name, as an homage to the real Bucky, who was still just considered dead at the time. Then someone pointed out to Marvel that it wasn't such a good idea to give a black character that name due to the historical use of the word buck to refer to male slaves. Whoops. So that's why they now call him Battlestar. Yes, I did hear about that. That was going like, this is of course back in the day. But yeah, apparently the original name of that character was also going to be Bucky. They thought better of it and realized, that's probably not such a good idea.
Which is why, and I was having this conversation on a podcast yesterday I was being interviewed for, why the importance of diversity in writers' rooms and, amongst producers and people that are making decisions, because sometimes these things don't get the attention that they deserve.
Yeah.
If people are not necessarily aware of the historical nature of certain terms.
So good, even though I don't like the name Battlestar, that was a good decision to make. All right, Chad Furlong writes, my 2 favorite movie theater experiences, seeing Pineapple Express at a packed midnight screening surrounded by stoners and watching Cabin in the Woods, having seen no marketing whatsoever. The opening scene had me thinking that we were in the wrong theater. Cabin in the Woods, by the way, did you ever watch Cabin in the Woods? With,
it's a sore spot in our household.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is it? You'll have to tell me that story.
No, Tom auditioned for the Chris Hemsworth role. This is pre-Chris Hemsworth being Chris
Yeah,
Hemsworth.
because they shot this long before Thor.
Right. And he and the feedback, he was in that audition for like an hour and a half, and the casting director he was like right at the beginning of Tom's career. He like just graduated from from theater school and from drama school, and they were like he came across too young or too old or too something, I don't know, but he got down to it. He got very close to the Chris Hemsworth role,
and Hemsworth got it,
and the rest is history. I could be married to Thor, damn it.
So there are 2 very, very interesting things about that movie. One is that like they literally wrote the screenplay. Joss Whedon tells a story that they literally wrote the screenplay in a weekend, which I thought that's an incredible pace. But it's one of those movies that the trailers are very misleading for it. But I don't know how you advertise that movie
without
giving everything away to let you know what this movie is actually like and what it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you're right. I remember the first time I watched it, I'm like, this is nothing like the trailers, but it's like, how would you make trailers that do reflect what the movie is like without completely spoiling the movie? So,
which is when you have to really rely on word of mouth and people such as yourself to say, hey, I'm not going to spoil this movie, but trust me, this is a movie you really want to see. And also not focusing on the opening box office weekend. There are those slow burn movies that as the public momentum builds up, as the word of mouth travels, of people going, I'm not going to say what it's about, just trust me. Like, what was the movie that won Best Picture, and it was the Korean film Parasite.
Parasite
Parasite was the movie that you couldn't put in a trailer why it was so incredible. And everyone, it was word of mouth. People going, I can't tell you why it's amazing. You just have to watch it.
Yeah. And again, that movie is so good, much like Cabin in the Woods. It's just bonkers. And again, you're right. How do you market that thing? All right. Next up, Mark B writes, Watching Justice League again, I dislike the visual style of the DCEU. Not to compare DC to Marvel, but when watching Marvel, I believe I can go outside and see aliens that look real. Not with DC. Did you notice, and does it take you out of the movie? No, I think for most movies introduce their own visual style, and your brain quickly acclimates to that this is the visual style. What was that one?
The Artist.
I wasn't thinking about The Artist. I was thinking about that one movie. It was nominated for Best Picture. Brad Pitt. It was about the drug trade. Brad Pitt, Benicio del Toro. And I'm trying to remember the day. Do you guys in the live chat? It was about 10 years ago. It was kind of about drugs, and it had Brad Pitt, and it had Benicio del Toro, and it had
Was it the one where the Brad Pitt gif where he's like dancing like this?
No. That's the comedy. He did that one. But anyway,
Traffic.
Traffic. Thank you. That was
Brad
the name of it.
Pitt was in Traffic?
Wait, is Traffic the one I'm thinking of?
No, Traffic was with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Hold on a second. Now I gotta look it up.
Catherine Zeta. No, the Mexican.
No. Mexican is the one he did with Julia Roberts, or no, with that.
Snatch.
No, it is Traffic. It is Traffic. People are saying Traffic. Okay, so it is Traffic. So anyway,
I don't remember Brad Pitt being in
Traffic had this very distinct color palette. Like it was like very orange, saturated, sort of things, right?
I'm laughing at the chat. People are just like, Guardians of the Galaxy, Babel, Traffic.
Oh, maybe
The Wire.
Wait a minute, maybe it was Babel.
It was Babel.
Babel's the
it was
one that
definitely
it is.
Babel. It was like Brad Pitt wasn't in Traffic.
Not Traffic. It was Babel.
It was Babel. Yes.
That is the one that did. Okay, so
and with what's her face?
it had a huge cast.
Yeah.
Had a huge cast.
And she got shot through the bus window.
But when you look at that movie,
Kate Blanchett.
It is a very, very distinct visual style, right? And your brain just attunes to that. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the DC films, particularly the Snyder films, including Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, people have been critical of the color palette he decided to use, darker tones, whatever. But to me, once the movie starts and I get 5 minutes in, my brain just adjusts to what it is this director, whether it's Babel or whether it's, Justice League or whatever. Your brain just tunes into what it is they're doing. And for me personally, no, the color palette never pulls me out. Unless it's like the movie's one color palette and then all of a sudden one scene didn't color correct properly and something totally different. But otherwise it doesn't. Oh, why? What are you laughing at now?
Ryan in the chat just wrote, it's pronounced bagel. This is why I can't have the chat next to me, is because Ryan will say something like it's pronounced bagel, and then I just have to lose my train of thought. But speaking of color palettes, one of the things that I thought was so interesting when it was pointed out to me was back in the heyday of CSI. I didn't realize this initially, but in hindsight, everybody will, oh yeah, CSI, the mothership, the one that was based in Vegas, had a green palette. CSI
New York?
Miami,
all right.
Was an orange color palette, and CSI New York was a blue color palette. So if you ever go back and watch clips, you'll see that it's got sort of this bluish hue over everything. In the Miami, it has an orangish hue over everything. And it really, what I like about that is it kind of, once your brain acclimates to it, it also kind of locks you in. You go into this world where you go, okay, this is the reality. And then you kind of accept anything absurd within that reality because your brain has just shifted to, okay, this is our reality for this hour that we're watching this.
Yep, totally agree. All right, next up, we've got Andy Hong who writes, one of two. Superman and Lois is going on a break after 5 episodes and will be shoved to the side while Supergirl takes the show's time slot to finish its final season. I understand that this hiatus was caused by production delays due to COVID, but it still kind of feels like Superman can't catch a break on getting shanked by Supergirl, so much so that even his show gets affected. I certainly feel that the Arrowverse/Supergirl EPs are having a ridiculous amount of fun touching themselves to this situation. Well, no, look. This is, me, I get completely triggered whenever I think about how dirty they have done the Superman character, particularly in relation to Supergirl, and how they just turned Superman into a jobber and how they disrespected the character, blah, 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 blah. This is not one of those situations, right? You said it yourself. This is a result of the break in production they had due to COVID. So they're going on hiatus after 5 episodes. I am incredibly impressed with this show so far. I really, really am. And so if you get your audience acclimated to coming to the network at a certain time slot, why not fill that time slot with another related show, at least loosely related? Showing that. So no, you know me, I hate what they've done with the Supergirl and Superman thing, but this is not one of those situations. I think this one is very, very innocent. I think this one is honestly very, very innocent. All right, next up, East Coast Sniper writes, "Hey, John, I was very excited to hear when Marvel announced that a while back what they were going to be coming out with a new Blade movie, but we still haven't seen or heard any updates or info really on the movie. Any ideas on why we haven't? Thanks." Well, I mean, there's a couple things. Number one, pandemic. Everything got pushed and sidetracked. But they did. We just talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. What was it? The screenwriter, or what was it again?
Mahershala
Ali.
Mahershala Ali is starring in it. And then, we were talking about the fact that it is going to be PG-13, and people were losing their minds because how do you do anything about vampires and not have it rated R? Yeah.
Right. But yeah. So, but there was
Kevin
also...
Feige said that he said that it was not going to go the way of Deadpool, but that they were going to keep it within the.
Oh, and it was, okay, but this is the one I was thinking of. It was back in February, so just not that long ago, a little month and a half ago, 2 months ago, that they actually hired the writer. That's what it was. They hired the writer. For Stacey Osei Kofer, they hired the writer on. So yeah, we have seen news and we have seen stuff of this project being in development. So yeah, number one, COVID and everything getting pushed back. But number two, progress is being made. They do continue to move forward. They just announced the attachment of the screenwriter. So everything continues to move forward. No reason to worry. All right, next up, we've got Greg Scott Bailey writes. Where are we at? Sorry, wrong thing here. Let me try to get this fixed up here. There we go. Greg Scott Bailey writes, one of three. "With Black Adam in the news, I've been reflecting on the career of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson lately. That dude really did elevate himself in so many ways. I have been a wrestling fan, but to go from that kind of a career to a movies is a bit of a quote unquote rocky start, pun intended, on The Mummy 2 and then Scorpion King. I think people were fans of his, but didn't take his acting too seriously at the time. But then at some point, he just broke through the walls, and I'm trying to pinpoint when it was. Was it The Rundown? Fast Five? It seems like right around 2010, 2012, he just took off, and I could easily watch every single movie of his with a grin on my face that whole time. And if I could just have 10% of that damn energy and drive, he's got it all. He's got LOL. Anyway, Dwayne The Rock, I mean, I don't think there's any comparison or discussion. Dwayne The Rock Johnson is the biggest movie star in the world. Like, I don't think that's even up for debate. Mm-hmm. Is he the greatest actor in the world? No, but he's the biggest movie star in the world, which is why for like 2 or 3 years in a row, he is the highest pay demand actor out there. He's the biggest guy. When did people begin to remotely start thinking he legitimately could be a movie star? And it certainly wasn't Scorpion stuff. The Scorpion King stuff. For me personally, there are two fundamental moments. One, when I'm like, this guy can be a movie star. And then there was a movie that made me go, oh, damn, he's not just a movie star. He can now actually act to a degree. For me, the one that was like, this guy can legitimately be a movie star was The Rundown. The Rundown for me was the one that's like, wow, I actually really enjoyed this movie and I really enjoyed him in it. I never take a beer out of another man's fridge without asking permission. I love that line. Anyway, so The Rundown. The one for me that made me go, wow, this guy can actually act. There are two films. One is called Snitch, which he plays the father. He plays a father and his son gets caught up on drug charges. And the cops say to Dwayne Johnson, we will go lenient on your kid and drop charges if you will take his place and wear a wire and go and get inside of this. It's really just more acting. And then he did another one with, who's the woman who played Dexter's sister? Jennifer Carpenter. He did a movie
was on Limitless.
Who was on Limitless with
my
your husband,
Tom Degnan.
That's right. She did a movie with Dwayne Johnson called Faster.
Yeah.
Or Fast. It was either just called Fast or Faster, one of the two. And he got to show off a little bit more of his drama. And it was at that point that I went, but you got to understand Dwayne The Rock Johnson's work ethic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This guy, to be him, he understands his physical presence is a big part of who he is. This dude spends 3 or 4 hours a day in a gym working out. And so when I heard about when he made the decision to actually go and try to become a legitimate actor, and he started telling the stories, I started working with this coach, this group, and you realize this damn man not only puts in all that work on his physical stuff, he brings that same work ethic to like, I'm serious. I want to be as good as I can be as an actor. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put in the work. Yeah. I'm not just going to go, I'm famous. I want to put in the work. And you look at this list of all these acting coaches he has worked with, he's put in the work, and he is not a top 15, 20% best actors in the world, but he is legitimately at the point that if I was a producer, I'd feel comfortable knowing that this guy was going to be in my movie.
And not only that, the top 15, 20% of, of actors who are considered to be the top of their craft can't necessarily open a big blockbuster movie that's going to guarantee thousands upon thousands of people employment. People say the same thing about Madonna, for example. Was Madonna ever the best singer? No, she'll be the first person to admit that. But she was the hardest worker. And decade after decade after decade, she sold out arenas. She kept hundreds of thousands of people employed because of her work ethic. And I think that when you are an artist and you are able to look at your shortcomings and reinvent yourself in the way that Dwayne The Rock Johnson has, in the way that people who have longevity over their careers have, that is really something. There's something to be said for that. I've been doing this Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation, and one of the days there's these parables in numerous days, and one of them it talks about the phrase "this too shall pass," and I won't go into the whole parable that they use, but it's talking about this person that they go through a bad situation and they remember the phrase "this too shall pass," and so then things get really, really good, and the wise sage says to him, don't forget, this too shall pass. And he's like, what are you talking about? Things are great. Things are awesome. And he says, yes, but this too shall pass. And that was such a power. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I think that people who have long-term success understand that while bad times, yes, this too shall pass, we will get through this. That's also true for good times. In moments of high success, there has to be an understanding that this will not last forever. There will come a time when someone else is more popular, someone else is more talented, someone else has more money, someone else has more fame. And it's the ability to ride through that. And during those times when you can not rest, but take care of yourself and train for the next step. And that's what I love about this story about Dwayne Johnson, is the fact that he saw his success as, his physical self, as we've seen, I won't say any names, but as we've seen with certain other people that have come out of the wrestling world that have tried to emulate that, what they've mistakenly not done is put in the additional work to do the training to work on their craft as well,
Yeah. And so that's true in every field. It's true in every field.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look what we were talking about with the Bee Gees not that long ago, how there's going to be a biopic about the Bee Gees. And I was saying, if you look at the Bee Gees over the course of their career, they had multiple spikes because they were popular in folk. They were popular in disco.
They were reinventing themselves all the time.
Constantly reinventing themselves and never going, well, I don't it's like bands going, well, I don't understand why people don't listen to grunge anymore. Okay, well, they're not. So if you're not reinventing yourself, be happy with your success in the 90s and now go do something else.
All right. By the way, Leandro Urena sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. All right, let's move on. Next up, JR writes, Mandalorian Season 1 in 2019 and Season 2 in 2020. With the Book of Boba Fett coming next fall, winter, and announced projects all in pre-production in some form, Andor, Kenobi, Rangers, etc., could it really be several years before we see Mandalorian Season 3, 2024, 2025? No. John Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy back in December or something came out and officially said, like, in case there's any confusion, as soon as we're done production on Book of Boba Fett, we're going to start making Mandalorian Season 3. So, no. So we're not going to be waiting. Don't worry. We're not going to be waiting for till 2024, 2025. We're not actually going to have to wait that long for Mandalorian Season 3. All right. Good question, Jay. Next up, JR also writes, I think I realized I was a true Star Wars fanatic when I realized I'm looking more towards any single Star Wars show than I am any and all of the Marvel shows. I love Marvel. I just love Star Wars all the more. OG Trilogy and Rebels are top tier. Yeah, I mean, that to me is some of my favorite stuff. The OG Trilogy, Rogue One, the show Rebels, I think is great. And yeah, you listen, I got to say, probably right now, I am more looking for, oh gosh, you know, when I look at the whole list of all the Marvel shows coming, like whether it's Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, the Hawkeye series, the list goes on. And I look at, I think maybe the thing I'm most looking forward to right now is that Star Wars show they're doing called Acolyte. That's the one that really, that one, the time period is taking place on, the fact that it's apparently going to be revolving around a Sith apprentice, has me probably more excited than the Obi-Wan series, maybe even more excited than the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, the sounds of this is amazing to me, so I'm very, very stoked. And by the way, Lindro sends in another, like a big super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Lindro. Appreciate that, dude. All right, let's move on here. Next up, Preston the Kryptonian writes, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, is there any explanation as to why Supes chooses the black suit over several other suits that popped out in the Kryptonian ship when he walked in? I heard that it was because the black suit absorbs more sun, but if you look at it at the time in the ship to when he meets Alfred and to the fight with Steppenwolf, it all happens at night, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League twice now, but maybe I missed something. Thanks. So, big discussion has been lately. Why did Superman put on the black suit? And there have been one of the big things that a lot of people say is, well, because, you know, Superman gets his power from the yellow sun. So black absorbs more of the sun. You want to wear that. To the thing saying most of these shots were at night, don't forget there's a shot where Superman flies up into space and is just standing in front of the sun. So that's the thing. Yes, it was night on Earth, but or at least that part of the Earth, he flew up to be in front of the sun. I was thinking about that explanation, though. People saying he needed to wear the black to absorb more of the power of the sun. My first issue with that explanation is, so then why doesn't he wear that suit all the time? If he's more powerful wearing that suit, why not just wear that suit? But here's the other thing. If you're out in the desert, what color do you wear to keep the sun and its radiation off your skin? Black. That's what you wear to keep it off you. Because that absorbs all of it, yes, but it keeps most of it from actually getting to you and getting onto your skin.
Wouldn't you wear white to reflect the sun?
But if you hold up white, right? If you hold up white, like if I'm in front of this light source and I hold up a white cloth, how much of the light is getting through? Okay, right. Yeah. Whereas if you wear black, it blocks it out.
It depends on the thread count and the opacity of the actual material. Sure, but generally you can have white blackout curtains,
right? But if I put up a same width, same thickness, same everything, if I put up a white cloth over that window, more light is going to make it into the room than if I put up a black cloth. It's just so I was thinking about that, and I was watching Lawrence of Arabia, where a lot of the desert warriors, they wear black because that just keeps the sun off them. So,
but Lawrence was wearing white.
But Lawrence of Arabia was wearing white, and we see that a lot of the times. But a lot of other people, they don't. So look, I think this comes down to who cares. It just comes down to who cares. Does the movie give a really good, solid explanation as to why he puts on the black suit? No. But did the movie give any solid, hardcore explanation about why Batman changed suits? One of our viewers brought that up once. I'm like, you know what? That's a great point.
Yeah.
They never gave an explanation of why Superman or why Batman suddenly changed suits. We don't need to know why. Who cares? Superman woke up, walking through the ship, felt like wearing black today. I feel like Johnny
appreciate-
Cash.
I just appreciated that Superman has chest hair.
Yeah, there you go.
I was really, I really don't like the grown men shaved manicure. Like, I don't like the grown men with no chest hair look. Like just in general, but because I'm an adult and I like, adult men. But I also like the fact that like, oh yeah, okay, like we don't have him plucked and waxed. That's not what Superman's supposed to look like. Sorry, that was.
By the way, sorry, I totally lost track. We've taken you overtime on this. It is well past. Anyway, Erin, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, even without my trusty sidekick.
Even without Joey Bishop. But
She'll
in
be
the
back
meantime,
next week.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on social media and more time lately on Clubhouse at Erin L. Cummings. And I'm really excited. I'm going to have to talk to you about maybe my schedule coming up because speaking of reinventing yourself and constantly challenging yourself, I finally decided to break free from my fear of improv, and I am going to be taking my first immersive class at Upright Citizens Brigade in
that's
improv.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I've been talking about doing it forever. Tom took several courses there and really enjoyed it, and he did phenomenal work. And so I said, you know what? I think it's time for me to go ahead and give that a shot. So I'm going to be doing that pretty soon, which I'm really excited about.
Well, thank you for being here, and we will talk to you again next week. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Erin L. Cummings, sans Joey Bishop, but that's okay. We'll see Joey soon. Anyway. Oh, and happy birthday to Ann. It's, by the way, guys, it's my wife's birthday today. We're going to be talking about that in just a little bit, but it is Ann's birthday today. So we have a good day planned ahead of ourselves. Anyway, we still got some time here. Let's keep moving on with your question, shall we? We're going to keep things going here with Preston the Kryptonian, who writes, also on the subject of Zack Snyder's Justice League again, I loved how they showed Supes coming out of the ship with his cape waving the exact same way as he wore his suit in the first time in Man of Steel. With that Hans Zimmer music theme, I nearly lost it. Yeah, there was a part of me, you know me, I love Man of Steel. There was a part of me that's like, well, they already kind of did this before, but whatever. That Superman score, I still contend. And I know it's almost sacrilegious to say, but Hans Zimmer's Superman score, the What Are You Going to Do When You're Not Saving the World? Bum, bum, is almost, I'm not saying it's quite on the same level, but it is in the conversation with the John Williams iconic Superman score. I really do think whenever I hear it, I kind of get chills. I kind of get chills. Anyway, next up, Bill H. writes, picture Broadway shows, movies under the stars, ice skating, nightlife, casinos, comedy shows, great food, and tropical islands and paradise. The John Campea Show Cruise 2022 would be an epic way for the John Campea Show family to meet and hang out with the community. What do you say, guys? Yeah, I don't think so. I know. I don't think that would actually work. I mean, going on a cruise, yes. I think there are some people that often wildly overestimate my popularity. I am a nobody. I am a nobody kid from Canada who just is lucky that I get to talk about movies online. I am not, beloved by billions around the world. I think sometimes you got to keep in mind, guys, we have a great community here, but as far as I go, I am an absolute nobody in this thing. So I don't think we're going to be seeing a John Campea Show cruise in 2022, but yeah, it would be fun. No doubt it would absolutely be fun. All right, next up. Stefan Dylan Wouters writes, hey, John, longtime viewer since the AMC days. Thank you so much, man. And finally able to send you in some tips. Well, listen, don't feel, you're just here being part of the community. That's all we need. If you want to send a tip, great. Thank you for that. But don't feel in any way like you need to. But thank you for that. I appreciate that. Vaccinations here in Belgium are slow to roll out. Won't be able to return to theaters until May at the earliest. Dying to go back. Life isn't the same without theaters. Listen, I'll tell you what, man. When I went back, I said this before, I will say it again. When I went back to the theaters for the first time in a while, when we, me, Aaron, and a bunch of our friends, we booked out the theater a few weeks ago to see Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And then when I went back again to see Nobody, and then of course I just went back to go see Godzilla versus Kong, it just feels like we're home again. You know what I mean? It just feels like we're home. and it just felt so good. And oh my God, I am so glad I got to watch Godzilla versus Kong for the first time on the big screen and not on our pathetic televisions. It was the way to watch that movie. And I'm so it just feels good to be back, man. It just feels good to be back. And hopefully you guys in Belgium will get that vaccine thing up and running sooner rather than later. All right, next up. Great Grabthar's Hammer. Always got to love a good Galaxy Quest reference. I'm going to go ahead and also add my support for Mighty Ducks Game Changers. This show is very charming, and I completely lost it with the new neighborhood kid from Toronto decked out in a Maple Leafs gear, only to be the worst skater on the team. Yeah, there's something ironic about that. Again, I had no interest. I continue to have no interest in this new Disney Plus Mighty Ducks show. No interest whatsoever. But, Great Grabthar's Hammer, we are starting to get a growing number of people who are saying they watched it and actually quite like it. If I keep hearing that, I might have to check it out. Again, I'm not going to lie. I have very, very little interest in it. But if I keep hearing people saying that they love it, maybe I'll have to give it a shot. Thanks for the recommendation, man. Next up, Stefan writes, I'm a huge fan of animated movies, especially Disney and Pixar's. Not gonna lie, I was heartbroken when I heard that Luca was going exclusively to Disney+. I don't get the strategy. Pixar movies make a lot of money. June 18th release would have done fine. I agree. I think what Disney is thinking right now, though, is that, look, we are in what is the customer acquisition phase of Disney+. I mean, every company is always, to a degree, in an acquisition phase, but they are truly in the major acquisition phase right now and for the next couple of years. To do family, especially if you're Disney's brand, to do family level content like that, make it a Disney Plus exclusive, really snowball the adding on new subscribers all the time. I get it. I mean, I'm with you. I mean, the way I would have wanted to see Luca in any Pixar film is on the big screen at first. But, to do something like this. And by the way, it's also kind of I also totally believe, I haven't heard anybody at Disney say this. This is me speculating. I could be way off. But I really do also partially believe that them taking movies like Soul and taking movies like Luca and making them just regular Disney Plus exclusives, like you don't have to pay extra for them. I also believe that is in a way Disney saying to their customers, this is our makeup move. Like, yeah, we put out Mulan on Disney Plus, but we made you pay 30 extra bucks for it. So here's Soul for no extra money. Here's Soul. Yeah, we're doing Black Widow on Disney Plus, but you got to pay a premium. Like you got to pay your Disney Plus subscription. Now you also have to pay $30 on top of that to watch it at home. Tell you what, here's our makeup move. Here's Luca for no additional charge. Again, I haven't seen anybody verify that that's the case. But I really do believe, like Raya and the Last Dragon is another one of those. I believe moves like Soul and Luca is Disney Plus saying, hey, yeah, we're making this one premium, charging you on top of what we're already charging you, but here's a freebie, sort of thing. So I don't know. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out as time goes on. Let's see. Next up, Tom Gillard writes, I saw Godzilla versus Kong with my best friend and his girlfriend. We had fun. They had more fun than I did because they started kissing halfway through the movie. It was really awkward for me. What was the most awkward, weird you have felt in a movie? Oh, that's easy. I've told this story before, although it's been a while, but it's absolutely true. I remember the last time I went to a drive-in in Canada. Now, it is not unusual for like drive-ins that people show up in their pickup trucks, but back into their spot and then open the tailgate. They got like little coolers up there. They got their chairs up in the back of the car, of the truck and watch, right? So, but the last time I was there, and some of you may have heard me tell the story before, about one or two rows up in front of us and to the right, there were literally two people standing up, not kissing, having sex, standing in the back of the pickup truck. Which, gives a whole new meaning to double feature, but it was also incredibly awkward. It was also kind of awkward. So yes, that I would say, if I was with some people, okay, look, I would get pissed off. If I said, yes, I'll go and hang out with you and your significant other, we'll all go, sure, have fun. And they just spent the movie making out, I would probably be a little bit perturbed because I would feel very, very awkward. But I mean, yeah, that one in the drive-in, that remains my most awkward one. No doubt. That's the most awkward one to me. Anyway, let's move on here. Next up, Bucky Rocks writes, hi. You mentioned previously that Cap would have beat Flag Smashers when Bucky and Sam couldn't. I believe a brainwashed Bucky on a Flag Smasher kill mission would have won that fight. No, I don't think so. Brainwashed Bucky seems to be underpowered. You probably mean non-brainwashed Bucky seems to be underpowered and underskilled. Again, I don't get that sense at all. As a matter of fact, this newest episode, which we'll talk about the newest episode of Bucky and Falcon and Winter Soldier a little bit later, but there's a scene in the bar. He's clearly still him. He still clearly has his ability and what he does. But again, he's not Cap. And again, they were fighting superior numbers of super soldier enhanced individuals. You cannot I feel like a lot of people are treating that as some small little insignificant detail in the overall narrative here, that they happen to have the abilities of super soldiers. That is not some small insignificant detail. It is quite relevant. And it is quite pertinent to the discussion. So yeah, I don't get the sense, especially after watching the nightclub scene in the newest episode of Bucky or Falcon and Winter Soldier. I don't feel at all that they've depowered him. I don't feel like they've done that at all. This is the same guy who had to run for his life against Iron Man. This is the same guy who was losing the fight against Black Panther. This is the same guy who couldn't finish off Steve, even though Steve was pulling his punches and trying not to hurt him too badly. That's the same guy. I just don't agree. I don't feel like they've underpowered him. That's just me though. I could be right. I could be wrong. It doesn't really matter, but that's just kind of how I feel about it. That's just me, Bucky. All right, next up. V writes, hello, I am researching tech stock to invest in. What tech do you think will be big in the future? Like, for example, do you think quantum computers will revolutionize the computer industry or just fail? Any good investment tips? Dude, I am the wrong guy to ask for investment tips. The only investment tip I know is buy low, sell high. I mean, that's it. I do a little bit of investing, but I am not well knowledgeable in the art of investments and stock trading and all that kind of stuff. I'm the wrong guy to ask. I mean, I will tell you that 15 years ago, you should have bought Google when it went public. Probably would have been a good idea to buy Bitcoin at $7, which is when my buddy got his Bitcoin. I'm not kidding. My buddy bought his Bitcoin when it was $7. Now it's like what, 54,000, 55,000, 60,000? I don't know. But he bought Bitcoin at $7. But that's all hindsight. I am not the right guy to give. Tesla's future looks good with their technology, but other than that, I'm the wrong guy to ask. It's a great question to be asking, V. I'm just the wrong guy to ask. So, because no, don't take my recommendation at all. All right, Kung Fu Hot Dog writes, hey, John, when you talked about Adam Wingard doing a Thundercats movie with photorealistic CGI, you should check out Resident Evil Vendetta. I've seen bits of that. It's a CGI Capcom Sony venture, which has mutations being killed by Kung Fu and Gun Fu. Watch it on repeat. Hey, look, obviously, there is some very impressive visual effects capabilities out there. I'm just not going to lie. And look, Thundercats may end up being my favorite movie of all time when it eventually comes out. And especially after watching the kind of fun that Wingard was able to bring us with Godzilla versus Kong, I'm very curious to see what he's going to do with Thundercats. But I'm not going to lie. I would have preferred, and I would have been more excited hearing that it was a live action thing. That's all. And who knows, maybe once we watch this Thundercats incarnation, we'll go, oh, it was perfect to do it animation. Maybe we will. But again, just right now, I'm kind of wishing we were getting a live action one. That's just me. All right. Next up. Guillaume, I always mispronounce his name. Forgive me for that. Labelle writes, bonjour, Jean. Movie theaters have reopened here in Montreal. So happy. Went to go see Nobody yesterday, and tonight is Fight Night, Godzilla vs. Kong in Dolby Atmos. Side note, have you considered adding noises off to your movies in 20 list? # Team Kong. Well, first of all, that is a great back-to-back way to go. Nobody and Godzilla vs. Kong. Again, neither of these are Academy films, but they're just good, fun films to get us back into the movies. I had such a good time watching Nobody. I had so much fun watching that movie. And then going to watch Godzilla vs. Kong, which is, again, just big screen spectacle. Such a good time. Meh story at best. But yeah, it was just so much damn fun watching that thing. So that is a great back-to-back thing to do, man. Great back-to-back thing. And yeah, I think Noises Off might be one we do on Movies in 20 shortly. By the way, the new Movies in 20 should be going up today. Our Movies in 20 Gladiator should be going up today. So keep your guys' eyes open for that. All right, next up, we got an anonymous viewer who writes, I wonder when Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker will get the Snyder Cut treatment. Hashtag Ben Solo lives. Yeah, that is most likely never going to happen, nor should it ever happen. The quicker we all forget about The Rise of Skywalker, probably the better. All right, Chris, right. And by the way, I understand some of you guys really like Rise of Skywalker. That's great. I'm not devaluing your enjoyment of it. Not at all. But, for me, did not work. So, it is what it is. All right, Chris writes, hey, John, I read an article that says Pixar employees felt demoralized. We talked about this a little bit the other day, that Pixar employees felt demoralized because Disney has put their last two movies, Soul and Luca, straight to Disney Plus for free, while movies like Raya gets theatrical releases and the premiere treatment. Your thoughts? Okay, so I'll talk about this just for a second, and I'll just basically say what I said the other day. This story is coming from a guy who used to be like a senior editor at Hollywood Reporter, who says that he talked to somebody he knows that works at Pixar that says him and a couple of other people felt underappreciated because their movies like Soul, working in Pixar, like Soul and Luca, are just getting put on Disney Plus, while other movies like, Mulan, Raya, and The Last Dragon are at least getting partial theatrical and premiere access additional fees. So they feel like, oh, but there's a couple things to understand. There are thousands of people that work at Pixar. They literally could be talking about 3 people out of 1,000 that feel that way, right? We just don't know. It's just some guy says he talked to another guy who says that him and a couple of other people feel this way. It's like, okay, it's not a big story. It's not like a survey was done amongst Pixar employees, and it turns out 700 of the 1,500 employees feel like they're being devalued because of this and that. For all we know, it could literally be 3 people out of 1,000. We just don't know. So to me, it's really not a big story, nor a big issue. Different people are going to feel differently for different things. I think if you're a Pixar employee, you just think it doesn't matter what they do with the film. Disney obviously very much values Pixar's films. That's obvious they do. And so what they choose to do with the property and how they think they can get the best leverage out of it for the growth of their brand, that's up to them to decide. And I don't think they should feel devalued by that at all. So that's just kind of my take on it. All right, next up, we've got Groovy Don't Play writes, hey, John, why on earth is my local AMC only showing Godzilla vs. Kong on 2 of 16 screens? Sold out. Given the state of business, when they want to have it on as many screens as possible, when I worked for Carmike, films like this would get on 5 screens. Love you, boo, Gru B. It's a good question. I don't know. Like, I remember when I was working at AMC, and I think it was the night that the first Avengers movie was coming out. I think the first Avengers movie was on like 5 of the 16 screens. But midday before the openings, they added 1 or 2 more theaters. Then it was a few hours before opening, they added a couple more theaters. By the end of the night, every single theater at the AMC Burbank 16 was like playing Avengers. It was something like that. Why does one theater, when the biggest movie coming out is Godzilla vs. Kong, and there's nothing really else out that's premium other than maybe Nobody, why would you not put it on more screens if you're selling out the screens you have it on already? That's a very good question. They should have. I mean, unless there are some like contractual issues, there's no reason why that general manager shouldn't have made the decision to say, look, Godzilla versus, or maybe Godzilla versus Kong just caught them by surprise and they weren't anticipating it being as big as it is. I think it's been catching a lot of people by surprise. So maybe that's it. But yeah, that's a very, very good question, man. That's a very, very good question. All right, next up, Starbuck writes, I watched Godzilla vs. Kong. I have never seen so much mumbo jumbo and just straight up nonsense in a movie and had to turn off my brain halfway through. The human parts were terrible, but it still had by far the best kaiju fights ever, and that made it worth it. Yeah, listen, no argument for me that the story is not Academy worthy. The human parts, I like the Team Kong, like the woman and the little girl. I actually did like that. And they actually played a functional purpose in the narrative. Those characters are the ones who get Kong from here to here to here. They had definitive narrative purpose. I thought they played okay. The Godzilla side humans were completely useless. They didn't even need to be in the movie. Again, that's no knock on the fine actors playing those roles. It's just that they ended up being kind of useless. And overall, the story was a little bit weak. It's like, why did Mechagodzilla suddenly do this? I won't give any spoilers away. Why did that? I mean, kind of weak. But for a big screen experience, the Godzilla versus the kaiju stuff was so much fun and so great. It totally made up for the rest of it for me, Starbuck. Totally made up for the rest of it for me. All right, next up, we got Dakota who writes, tech question here. In your opinion, what is the best all-around PC out there? Before Alienware was bought out by Dell, they were considered the best PC there was. But what PC do you consider the overall best for gaming, editing, and everyday work? Well, honestly, the answer to that question, and I'm sure you'll get different answers from different people, but there is no answer to that. There is no brand that I think is, like, for instance, my computer is by Digital Storm. Digital Storm did a fabulous job putting my computer is a powerhouse. It's great. I'm able to take in like 4 cameras, HD signals all at once, mix them, live broadcast, and bring all on one computer. It's a powerhouse machine. Digital Storm did a great job. But ultimately, really, it's the best computer is the one you Frankenstein together. What processor do you want? What RAM do you want? What hard drives do you want? Do you want, regular solid state drives? Do you want the M1 drives? Do you want, whatever? What type of motherboard do you put in? What components? It's really all about that. We are so far beyond like certain brand because all each brand does, like Digital Storm doesn't make their processors. Digital Storm doesn't make their RAM. Alienware never made their own hard drives. It's just, different companies do different assemblies of computers using third-party components to make it. So the answer is whatever computer you make. You get a computer and put all the top spec stuff in it. That's your top computer. It doesn't matter if Digital Storm's the one who put it together, or if iBuyComputer's the one that put it together, or Alienware put it together, or CyberPC put it together. Doesn't matter. It really is now all about the components that you use and getting those put together. Anyway. Good question, Dakota. Next up. Oh, and this will be the final. We're at 12 o'clock. This will be our final question today, guys. This final question comes to us from BK Dan, who writes, hey, John, not conspiracy theorist either, but I can see them move Mortal Kombat 1 week to force the second week of HBO Max subscriptions. So yeah, we obviously talked about that yesterday because they announced that Mortal Kombat and Venom 2 were each being moved by 1 week. With Venom, the reason why was obvious. They just compete a little bit better with their demographic in the week they moved to instead of the week they were on. So no big secret. But why did they move Mortal Kombat so late? I think the answer to that is obvious. Now I think it is. Which is, it was supposed to open on April 16th, which is within the 1-month window of the March 18th release of Snyder Cut. So you could technically, if it stayed on April 16th, you could have technically, for 1 month subscription on HBO Max, have gotten Justice League, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Mortal Kombat. They will never admit this, but I believe the reason that Warner Brothers moved Mortal Kombat by 1 week was so that you would have to renew your subscription for HBO Max. For those of us who are there, you will have to renew your subscription for HBO Max for at least 1 more month in order to also get Mortal Kombat. Whereas if they didn't move it by 1 week, you still would have been on your 1 month subscription of HBO Max from when you picked it up to watch Snyder Cut. Unless you're like me, who I've had HBO for a long time, it doesn't matter. But I really do think that was the main motivation behind it. All right, listen. For everybody else, from Thomas, James, Edith, and BK and on, do not worry, guys. We're going to get a companion video done this weekend. We're going to get all caught up on all the questions. So do not worry. If you send in those questions, they're going to get answered and addressed. We're going to do that this weekend. Also, guys, I want to talk for a second about Falcon and Winter Soldier. Quick note about Falcon and Winter Soldier. For those of you guys who saw my video yesterday, you guys will know that I was in the hospital a couple of nights ago. I got what I thought was just a major leg sprain or a calf strain. Turned out to be a little bit more of a serious condition called DVT or thrombosis, deep vein thrombosis. And that can be serious unless you treat it well. Fortunately, I suspected it could have been that. I went into the hospital the other night, found out what it was. Now, one of the things that this has been affecting is I haven't been sleeping. Now I need to get at least 6 hours of sleep a night or else I'm a bit of a mess. And for the past 4 or 5 days, I've only been getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep because of how much my leg hurts. And so I'm now on medication. They're saying I should be all good. But between the fact that I'm still a little bit of a wreck right now, and on top of that, the fact that it is my wife's birthday, I am not going to do a Falcon and Winter Soldier open spoiler discussion today. I'm not going to do one today. I will, however, do one tomorrow. So we will have a Falcon and Winter Soldier open spoiler discussion tomorrow. I hope you guys are able to join me. Keep an eye on my social media, particularly at Instagram or on Twitter, simply at John Campea. You can see it right there, at John Campea. Follow me there, or just keep your eye on the community tab on the YouTube channel for the exact time that we'll be doing the open spoiler discussion for Falcon and Winter Soldier, the newest episode. So keep your eyes open for that. All right, guys. That will do it for me for today for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here and making this a part of your day. Big thanks to Erin Cummings for being here and bringing her happiness along with us. Special thank you to all you guys who have sent in these live comments and questions. Number one, because you give us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you support our channel while you do it. And all of us here involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Okay, guys, that will do it for me. Don't forget, we'll have a couple of videos going up this weekend. Companion video. We've got our new movies in 20 coming. We're going to do our Falcon and Winter Soldier spoiler this weekend, so keep your guys' eyes open. That'll do it for me for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.